Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program. This is Scotty Roberts. You're watching the Intrepid radio program right here on Odyssey Radio Network, ODYSY1.com. Come on over, see all the goodness that's Odyssey Radio. We aren't actually broadcasting on Odyssey tonight. I got a little feedback here. Hang on a second. That represents the loop, not loop, the delay. So we're not broadcasting live on Odyssey Radio tonight. They're playing a replay again. And hopefully, knock on Formica, we're going to have our software all reset up by early next week and get this show back online the way it was. And so for now, we've been doing for the last month shows live every night over here on my YouTube channel. And those of you who are listening to this in the archive, that's youtube.com/Mr. Scotty Roberts. So come on over, check everything out. If you are here and you would like to join this channel, help support it, become a member, just hit the little join button down below the screen and you'll be able to join. It's $2 a month, $5 a month, or $15 a month. You can go see what you get for those membership levels. And I appreciate everyone who's already done that. And I'm glad you're here tonight, members and non-members. And by the way, everybody is welcome. You don't have to be a member. That's if you'd like to be a member, it's there. And let me clear out a couple of screens that are coming up here. We do have a program change tonight. Now, last night, you know how we started the show and I announced the topic for the night. We've been on this consciousness kick and trying to get through some of that. We're talking about Schrodinger's cat and what that is. It's a theory that's out there. And 2 nights now we've been trying to get into that. And last night we got side railed with the topic I was talking about. And then we had an interesting extra hour last night for those of you who weren't here. And I will say this, I will preface this by saying, I'm sorry, but I make no apologies. When I didn't lose my cool because I was always in control of what I was saying last night. But there's a point, you know how it is when you're talking sometimes and you lose your temper. Now I equate losing temper with a loss of rationale for a bit. You kind of lose touch and you blow up. For me last night there was about a minute there and I went back and I watched it to see how bad I actually was. And it wasn't all that bad, but there was a point where I lost my cool last night. And I said, "Hey, everybody, I asked you to do something. And if you're here watching the show," and I specifically say, "Everybody, listen to what this next thing is," it's for a reason, usually. And if you're checked into the show and you're listening to the show, go on over and if I tell you, listen to this, then you'll hear it. And so I lost it a little bit there, but there was also some of our members have different opinions. Not everybody who listens to this show lives here in America. And matter of fact, I got a lot of listeners that are from out of the country. A lot of course, mostly English-speaking countries, Great Britain, and then we have Canada, and we have Australia and New Zealand. We have a lot of listeners from those areas. And so you'll get different opinions sometimes. And as I always say, even on my Facebook channel, or my Facebook page, which you start to get the feel these days isn't really yours anyway. You're just borrowing the space and they tell you what you can and can't say. They edit you and they censor you and they don't let you say things. I'll put up an article. I put up a post that was a meme that showed, I don't even know who the singer is, the black singer who put out the really almost X-rated video this last year. And it was so highly rated. It was like the #2 song in America. And it was, I don't have a problem with certain things, but there are things that I don't show my children. There are things I wouldn't expose to the public. I wouldn't say this is the way. There are certain protocols you enact when you're dealing with the public or entertaining. And that video was about as close as you could come to being extremely R-rated, possibly even adult fare. And it's praised for its bravery, its courageousness, and the way they step out. Yet we also live in a country where Dr. Seuss is being censored. Abraham Lincoln is going through this um, culture war thing. You have what are some of the other things that have happened that we've seen being taken down or being censored, or you're getting free speeches being violated by corporations. As corporations say, well, the Constitution is for citizens. It doesn't apply to us if we're a corporation. And without getting into that topic, we see that kind of stuff going. I put up a meme like that on Facebook, and Facebook had to put up their little blocker on the top that said, "This is not full information. This is out of context information, missing context." And you have to click in there to see it before they'll let you see my post. And they were saying I didn't include information about what the Dr. Seuss Entertainment Corporation, the family run business, and all that. I didn't include their take on it. I said I wasn't commenting on their take on it. Facebook, I said it was commenting on how we censor things like Dr. Seuss, while at the same time we allow this other crap and garbage to go out on the airwaves. And so this is the age we live in. I don't remember the exact point I was making with that. You'll have to forgive me for that. But I put up this post this morning, and it was something that Jimmy Kimmel said. Jimmy Kimmel late night show. He actually last night on his show came down hard on the cancel culture and he is no supporter of the right. He is no supporter of former President Trump. But he came out and he said this. He said, we now have, because of this cancel culture with Dr. Seuss now, he said, now they've gone through and in his comedy routine, he's saying, we've come up with some great names for renaming Dr. Seuss's books. Number one, he said this, The Cat in the Problematic Headdress. Number two, the Grinch appropriated Native American culture. Number three, Hop on Pop, in parentheses, with his consent. My favorite, Horton hears a they, pronouns. Horton hears a they. The next one was Horton hears a misogynist joke and reports it to HR. Then there's a Wocket in my ethnically sourced sustainable pocket. Then he had no eggs or ham, which is probably a vegan thing. And Yertle the gender fluid turtle and other stories. And what's interesting, he says, Jimmy Kimmel said, this is how former President Donald Trump gets reelected. By the way, said Jimmy Kimmel, who in no way supports former President Trump, cancel Dr. Seuss, cancel Abe Lincoln, melt down Mr. Potato Head's private parts and throw them at the Muppets. This is his path to victory the next time around. And that was his way of saying, if this is what you want, this is what you're going to get. So it was very interesting. Yeah, Kimmel has to obey his handlers so they don't make the Man Show a problem for him. I loved him on the Man Show, by the way. And so now I also have a program change. In about 10 minutes, rather than talk about consciousness tonight, I'm going to do the the way we did with Rainey on Sunday. I'm going to call a guest in, and it's wonky. It's makeshift. Just like, remember when I held up the phone like this and I had Rainey talking to us on Sunday? We're going to bring Reuben FastHorse in tonight at about 20 minutes after. If everything connects okay and all goes well, you might have a couple of glitches where I know even when I looked at when I had Rainey held up here like this, how did I have her? I had her in this. Which hand did I have? Yeah, because I put my elbow up here and I held this up so you could see her and listen to her talk. and you focus in to get the light to adjust, and then I hold that up, and then Reuben will be here, and I'll hold that up, and we'll have a conversation with Reuben FastHorse tonight. And so we'll do that via phone, which is pretty wonky, pretty makeshift. But after all, we are broadcasting right now from my makeshift studio in my makeshift setting. I don't have my equipment here. I don't even have a studio mic here or a soundboard. You're just hearing me through the computer microphone. And so, Field Guy tells me look into StreamYards. I'm going to get Zoom hooked up. I may look into StreamYards, but I'm going to hook up Zoom and get Zoom running through my OBS, and we'll broadcast. That's the plan right now, anyway. So, Matt Finn says he's stubborn as a mule, as my mother used to say. Oh, Carolla, Adam Carolla. Yeah, he's much cooler, dude. I always liked Adam Carolla. I didn't like when his show became a political attack against President Trump for 4 years. I kind of lost touch with him. Not that I can't handle people who don't like Trump or anti Trump jokes, but when that became his whole monologue all the time, I was done. I was like, look, I get my politics somewhere else. Show me comedy. And by the way, this is spring water, and it's not flavored with Kool-Aid or anything like that. This is a strawberry kiwi flavored, you got it, fiber drink for old guys. So there it is. There's one of my true confessions. I don't really like strawberry kiwi, but it's better than just drinking it bland in a glass of water. So that's what I'm drinking tonight. Now I want to share something with you, and Reuben may address this too. You know how I mentioned a while back that Reuben had said that he wanted to adopt me into the Lakota tribe and into his family, which is a legal thing. And it's also a very traditional thing to take somebody who is non Indian, if you will, Native American in that sense, and adopt them into the tribe and adopt them into the family. And he said he was thinking of a name for me. And this morning, I put up a kind of a tongue in cheek thing saying, I think I've stumbled upon my name. And I gave it as um, uh, what was it? Stumbling Bear, because of the way I feel right now. And it was a kind of a joke because of the back injury I had and now my cracked rib and everything. I feel like I'm shambling these days. I stand up, my whole body just feels like, oh, I got to lay down. I got to sit down, which is the worst thing for my back, sitting down. And so I've got to be up and walking around, and it just wears me down really quick. And everything hurts, mostly the ribs right now. And so I put up Stumbling Bear. And we were talking tonight, and he said, I think I know what I want to name you for my family. And he's Fast Horse, but he gave me, yeah, really, Steve, don't fool yourself with too much fiber. Yeah, I'm careful. I learned that lesson a long time ago. I just take a fiber drink every day, and gets me regular. So here's the name that Reuben gave me, and this is how you pronounce it in Lakota. Let's see if I can get it right the first time. Woonspea wagakia. Woonspea gagakia. Woonspea wagakia. Woonspea wagakia. And he told me what the meaning was. And when we have him on, we'll have him pronounce it for you. And he'll explain what the meaning of that is. I know what the meaning is. And it feels almost um, I want to say embarrassing, but maybe a little humbling that he chose this name. Um, Waonspea means higher. Wagakea means knowledge. In other words, he says, I want to name you higher knowledge, greater knowledge. It's like wisdom kind of thing. And I said, "Oh wow." I said, "That's too humbling." But that's what he wants to choose, and it's his right to name me. And so um, that's the name he gave me, and I think it sounds better in Lakota than English. Wa'onspea wagakea. Wa'onspea wagakea. And trips over dog, slides down ladder. Exactly, Beth. That's why do you ask? Trips over dog, like the old joke. Um, so yeah, that's why I chose Stumbling Bear, and so I think it's very cool, Barbie D. Thank you. And by the way, for those of you who haven't said hi to, hey, Steve Clark, good to see you tonight, and Matt Finn, Master Finn, good to see you. And I know Field Guy is in here. Chad Sanders is in here. Steph Cuervo Queen is in here. And just those that want to show their faces here in the chat room. Brody Cheney, good to see you. I don't think I've ever, excuse me, ever met you before. For those of you, I'll repeat it again. For those of you who are new to the show tonight, this isn't the normal format for our show. This is my makeshift studio. This isn't even my studio. I don't have my microphones. I don't have my soundboard. I don't have my intro music. I don't have my advertisements. I don't have all my cool stuff and the ticker along the screen because I'm in a different place right now. I'm misplaced from my home studio for a while and working down in Louisiana. And so got to put up with that for now. And it's not broadcasting on the radio network. It's Odyssey Radio. We're just broadcasting via the YouTube stream. So it's there you go. There it is. Um, so and I do have you. Hey, Kevin Olson from Minnesota. Good to see you. KD from Minnesota. Good to see you in here tonight. Glad to have you, brother. And let's see. Well, you do have us, says Matt Finn. MSC is here. I see somebody saying hello to MSC. How you doing, MSC? And anything else? And Susie Q is here in the room. Welcome to you all. And so here we are for tonight. And I've got about 2 minutes, and I'm going to try to bring Reuben FastHorse in. Now, again, those of you who are here new tonight, this is not the way I would normally do this. But we've got to do this way. We did it with Rainy on Sunday, very casual on Sundays. And I thought, Reuben and I were talking. I said, why don't you come on in tonight? I said, I'm going to bring you in the same way I brought Rainy in to the show on Sunday. And it's a little makeshifty and it's a little low tech in our high tech world. But this should give you some opportunity to listen to Reuben. And I'll keep the chat room. I'll try to keep the chat room wide open. And we'll see if we can bring him in. I told him at 20 minutes after the hour. It's now 9:18 and a half or something like that. So in about a minute, I'll try to start dialing him up. And Reuben FastHorse has been a friend of mine for over 20 years. Reuben is a Lakota Sioux. Grew up between the Pine Ridge Reservation and the Standing Rock Reservation in South Dakota. And he teaches language revival. I met him 20 years ago or more doing the reenacting circuit. We were playing the Highland Scots in the British armies back in the French and Indian War era, 1750s, and he was doing a Native American show, talking about the traditions and language and so on. And he's been teaching at New York University, and then COVID, of course, put a big crimp on all of that. And so he's doing his shows on Sundays via Zoom, where he teaches a native language. Reuben lived with my kids and I back 19 years ago, before I knew Rainey even. And he lived with us for a few months. And so we got to know each other really well. We became brothers, and he has been since. And so what I'm going to do now Let's see if I can patch him in. If you all don't mind the wonkiness of doing it this way, let's give it a shot here, and let's see if we can get Reuben in. Here we go. I'm gonna call him up. I got to turn my sound up, and hopefully you'll be able to hear him well. I'll hold him up so the mic will pick him up. Now, it's interesting. Whenever I call him, it doesn't go through every time. So I will tell him to call me here very quickly. All right, he's not getting the connection. So let me do this. I'm going to tell him right now to where is he? Reuben FastHorse. Call me now for radio. And as Scott told me a while back, Scott was it Lowry or Scott Allen? This isn't a radio show. Not tonight. It's just a podcast. Just tell him my call won't go through. He hasn't seen it yet, my post. So as soon as we get Reuben, we will put him on, and we'll talk to him a little bit. Engineering division has been lacking. Sorry, Captain, sir. It's all right, First Mate Master Finn. It will be again soon, and we'll get this studio shipshape and Bristol fashion as soon as we can down here. You'd think I'd had the chance to do it so far, and I just really haven't. I hadn't had a chance to put this all together down on this end. So when Reuben calls, we'll pull him in. Podcasts are better than radio, says James. Hey James, how you doing? Yeah, radio, you're a little hampered. You're really hamstrung by time constraints. I liked Odyssey Radio because we had a really large audience there. Well, relatively speaking, we had about 5 to 6,000 listeners on a daily basis, according to Russ over at Odyssey Radio, and we were holding that pretty well, which isn't a huge number. We're a small show, and there may have been more on some nights and less on others. We're playing archives on Odyssey Radio now. I don't quite know what's playing over there. You could find out. Go to Odyssey, ODYSY1.com, and then click on the Listen Live, and you'll hear whatever show they've got playing in my place tonight, which one of my archives. And but we'll be back online here pretty soon with it, as soon as we get all our details ironed out. In the meantime, waiting for Reuben. Reuben and I, as we've mentioned on this show, we're trying to flesh out a book that we can do together. Now, I also announced on this show, I've got several things going in the writing category. I have the first thing I absolutely have to finish is my novel for my agent. That's The 10 Breaths of Ra. And we talked about that. I read some of that on the show a long time back. And I'm trying to get that finished. I'm still not quite done with that. And I want to get that into my agent's hands. And then my publisher, which is separate from my agent, I had a relationship with them before my relationship with my agent, Italia Gandolfo. My publisher, New Page Books, published The Rise and Fall of the Nephilim, published The Secret History of the Reptilians, published The Exodus Reality. And now they've been trying to get me to write another book. They've presented some things a couple of times over the years, and I just haven't done them. And I had a talk with my publisher a couple of weeks ago now, and he wants me to write a book, of course, on the Book of Enoch, which I've talked about for over a year on this show. So he wants me to get a really firm thing put together on that. And they also want to republish a second edition of The Rise and Fall of the Nephilim. He wants me to add a chapter or two, whatever I feel like, and he wants me to add in notes in some of the other chapters. And it's really a republishing of the book with new notes and a couple of new chapters of information. and that should be coming. If we get that to him, and by September, it'll be late next summer and autumn of 2022 that you'll see that book come out. Either one of those. So that's what's going on right now. I know a little bit of Enoch, and so it'll be interesting to approach some of those things in the book. I'm going to handle the book, I think, pretty matter of factly, scholarly, academically, break down the book, talk about what the book's all about, the history of the book, and then we're going to get into some of a little bit of the weird stuff. I've always said the book of Enoch is like the Bible on crack. It's a pretty wild book. It's Lord of the Rings almost meets the Bible. So thank you, Matt Finn. Yes, you can see my books over at the bottom of almost every page on my website. Every page you click into over there has the books listed at the bottom. Or on the main page, it'll say My Books is one of the categories beneath the headers with an image of some of the books. So there you go. Let's see what else we got going on. And caps lock, Book of Enoch, your credentials. I have no credentials, Mr. Stack. My credentials are, as I've mentioned in one of my first books, one of the major criticisms I got was I have no letters behind my name. Now, I went through college. I did not graduate from college. I dropped out. I was recruited by the local seminary through my church. And they said they would tutor me in the balance of my bachelor's degree as I worked on my master's degree. I worked on my master's for 2 years, never finished my bachelor's degree, never finished my master's degree. So basically, you're listening to all this stuff I talk about, and you're talking to somebody who all I have as far as letters behind my name, if you will, is high school graduate. I've had 5 years of post high school education, 2 years of postgraduate education, but no degrees. So I'm a high school graduate. And so most of my study and research has come during my Bible college and my seminary years, working on my master's. And that was all, I was done with school around 1983 to 84, in that range. So you do the math on that. 1984 to present, you're looking at 37 years. I have been doing my own research and my own study on things. And so that's where I tell people you don't have to have a degree or letters behind your name to have solid research and study. I've had guys who have the letters behind them, doctorates, some of them out there in the world, and they will challenge me because, well, I'll bet you don't even know what this means or that. And I say, I do know what that means. And, in archaeology, abbreviations for different periods of time. Like the Bronze Age. I'll bet you don't know it. The definition for the Bronze Age. And I said, well, I do. And, so I know these things because I've researched them, I studied them. I don't need an institution of higher learning to be able to garner facts and information and self-teach certain things. So there's a lot of knowledge I have just through research you compare, go to school for 3 years or 4 years or five versus nearly 4 decades of personal research on the same topics. And so I've got the research hours in. And a degree or that piece of paper is just as expensive piece of TP, said Steve. Pretty much. Now, I will never degrade a good education. But like Mike Rowe will tell you in the business world, he says, you don't need a college degree. You don't need to go to a university to gain skills that will make you very successful and financially successful in life. Same with this stuff. Most of the criticism I got for my books when they came out was I had no degree, no letters behind my name. I said, so what? And I've talked about this before. You'll remember some of this, but I said it's like being an artist. I said every one of you who degrades me for my research and says I need to have those letters behind my name, say you're a fantastic artist. Why don't you just stick to that instead of writing books? And so I asked them. I said, "You say I'm a fantastic artist. I do that for a living. Um, but let me ask you, I don't have a degree in art. So according to you, when I say I'm a historian, you say I can't be a historian because I don't have a degree saying I'm a historian. What about artist?" I said, "I don't have a degree saying I'm an artist. Does that mean I'm a fraudulent artist? That my art isn't real because I don't have a degree from an institution of higher learning on in art? I didn't major in art. I don't have my master's in fine art." I said, "So I'm a fraudulent artist, I guess." I said, "So which is it? You telling me I'm a great artist and I should stick with that, but at the same time, you're telling me I can't be a great historian because I don't have a letter behind my name. Doesn't make any sense to me." "Yeah, my art isn't real. It's not real," says Doug Stack. So there you go. And James says, "I may not know how archaeologists define the Bronze Age, but how many houses have they built from a concrete slab? Can they build their house? I can." There you go. And yeah, that's a great point, James. This is more the institutional degree that says, you know what the definition. Yeah, you give me an abbreviation, and can you tell me what age I'm talking about? Well, yeah, I can. But sometimes I have to look stuff up. But that's the beauty of having research books in the internet. Sometimes you can look shit up. Einstein said, "I never bother to remember anything I can look up." And I'm kind of the same way. It's like I'm not forgetful about stuff. I'm a genius because I can go look it up. I don't have to remember it. So there you go. I'm trying Reuben FastHorse again. I did tell him 9:20, 10:20 his time out east, and I'm not seeing him. Something must have come up on his end. We're not getting Reuben in. That almost sounded like he was going to pick up. So I'll shoot him one more message that says, "Showtime." All right, we'll see if he comes on. And so there you go. There's that. That's all I have to say about that. A little bit more history of Reuben and I is that Reuben is somebody that I always saw as being like, I used to refer to him as my priest. He is a man, though, he's as flawed as the rest of us. The reason I said he was my priest, and this started 18 years ago, I referred to him as my priest because, we would talk so much and share so much information. He had such good advice. And um, he was centered, peaceful, focused. He knew who he was. Um, Quiet man, not shy. I'm just saying a gentle man who could also be a warrior because he had that quality about him. But he went through his own troubles. And I told him just tonight when we were talking an hour ago. As a matter of fact, it was an hour exactly. It was 8:20 here. And I told him I'll call you in 1 hour, 9:20, and my time, 10:20 your time. And so we were talking a little earlier than that, and I said, "You are somebody that I still see and respect as somebody who, like all of us, has gone through your troubles, your trials, your tribulations, your heartaches, your crushed soul moments, those dark nights of the soul, you're struggling. Um, you've gone through all of that. And yet you are still a man who is peaceful, centered, focused. And Reuben, another aspect of our friendship and our relationship as brothers is he calls me Chia, which is means big brother in Lakota. Chia, I think it's Chian with an N that's almost silent at the end. And I call him Misu, which is little brother, Misun. And so we have a respect for each other. And he said tonight he was talking to Sam and I, and he said, you know, your dad and I, we differ on politics. He says, I'm a Democrat, your dad's a Republican. And I corrected him, I'm not a Republican, I'm an independent. And he just, we all laughed. And he said, but we see things a little different politically. We have different political ideologies. He says, but that has never been a thing that stopped me loving your dad. He says, we are brothers and we always will be. And that means a lot to me. And so this is the kind of guy Reuben is. You've seen him here before. I hope to get him on tonight. So we'll move on and we'll talk about some other things, and we'll just abruptly stop those other things if Reuben makes it in. So there was obviously some kind of holdup here, which is too bad. I would have loved to have him here. So um, just as a little fun, maybe some of you who are on my Facebook page saw this morning. I had to post it. I told Rennie I'm posting about this. I'm going to tell this little story. It's the thing they say, like when you have a comedian who has a wife, the wife is always dreading how much of their personal life will appear in the comedy routines. Well, I tell a lot of stories. Doug saw the post. You know which one I'm talking about. And Rainey called me this morning, and she said she just started out. Oh. She said, I got to tell you. She said, I was out this morning and it was so good. She said, it felt so good. It hurt so good. Then she went on and she said, I said, what are you talking about? And she goes, he rubbed me all over my body. He had his hands all over my body, was poking me in just the right places, prodding all over my body with his hands. And she said it hurt, but it felt good. And she was almost moaning this out. And she said, he poked me so deep. And then she starts laughing. And I started to figure out right away what she's talking about. She said, he poked me so deep, he hurt me in all the right ways. So much so, she said, that I made another appointment with him for Monday. I said, what is this, your own private hooker boy? And she said, no, I'm trying out a new chiropractor because our chiropractor is out of town. And she said, I had to have an adjustment. I went in and she said, I absolutely love this guy and what he did. And I said, of course, like a guy, I'm like, I suppose he's like really good looking too, has a six pack. She goes, no, he's kind of short and not very good looking and older, middle aged. And she said, but man, has he got the hands. She said, I'll let him touch my body anytime he wants and poke me in any way he needs to. I'm like, oh boy. So there you go. And I think she was just trying to get me hot and bothered. And so I was a bit relieved that it was a chiropractor. And because at first I wasn't sure what she meant. Chiropractor, that's even different. You get a massage therapist that makes you feel that way. That's a little different than just a chiropractor. So I was curious. What now? And hey, Corey, how you doing? Welcome. Yes, I am demand. Thank you. And so I said, well, I said, wait till I get home and poke you in all the right ways. I said, then we'll see who's better. And she's like, yeah. And we're laughing. So that was a post from this morning that I put up on my Facebook. Why, thank you, Corey. I appreciate that. That was very mature of me. And yeah, I told her so. So that was a good, fun talk with Rainey this morning. We'll maybe make her talk about it on Sunday if we can get her back on. And um, I'm just working to avoid getting into the main topic we were going to talk about tonight. Originally, before I talked to Reuben about an hour and a half ago and invited him to come on the show. And so to start a topic and start talking about consciousness again, after stalling on it here, waiting for this call to come through from Reuben, it just wouldn't work. And so, I mean, I could get into it. We could talk about Schrodinger's cat. What was that mean? Schrodinger's cat was a thought experiment. We were going to talk about this tonight. That has to do with thinking about how mind and body, consciousness and body connect, trying to define consciousness. Um, it's a thought experiment about quantum physics. There was a guy named Erwin, Erwin, Erwin Schrodinger. The O with the umlaut on top. Oh, is it the umlaut? The two little dots? So Schrodinger. He suggested it in 1935. I'll just tell you what this experiment was. And it was a reaction to the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum physics. And Schrodinger wrote this. He said, one can even set up quite ridiculous cases. A cat is locked up in a steel chamber, along with the following device, which must be secured against direct interference by the cat. In a Geiger counter, there is a tiny bit of radioactive substance, so small that perhaps in the course of only an hour of the atom's decays, in a course of an hour, the atoms decay, but also with equal probability, perhaps none, if it happens, the counter tube discharges and through a relay releases a hammer that shatters a small flask of hydrocyanic acid. And if what, blah, 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 blah. I'm getting lost in just reading his stuff. So his idea was if you place a cat in something that could kill the cat, this radioactive atom, in a box and sealed it, you wouldn't know if the cat was dead or alive until you opened the box. So that until the box was opened, the cat was, in a sense, both dead and alive. He's got something in there that will kill him, but we don't know if he's dead yet. And so this is used to represent how scientific theory works. No one knows if any scientific theory is right or wrong until said theory can be tested and proved. That's why we say in scientific theory, the theory about consciousness, theory about, if you will, let's go to ghosts, theory about UFOs, all of these things. If you cannot test them, then they are not anything but a theory. They may even be just hypothesis until you can prove that that theory actually exists, actually works. That's Schrodinger's cat. So, Steve Clark, we had the Oxy and beer last night. Well, I had the Oxy last night anyway. And it was the last one I had. I only came out here with 6 pills. And that was left over from my hip surgery or something 3 years ago. And so I brought those out here. And you saw and experienced one of them with me. I gave 2 of them to one of my other partners out here that's working because he was having some physical pain with something. So I let him have a couple of those. And so I just took the last one last night that I had. And so I'm going to have my doctor prescribe it. He knows I'm not an addictive personality. He knows I don't abuse them because he gives me like 10 of them every 6 months or 10 of them every year, something like that. And then I ask again, maybe a year later, hey, can I get a couple more Oxy? Because I had that flare up, and he'll just do it for me. So I'll get him to fill a prescription. I'll ask him, and I think he'll give them to me back home. And then Rainey will send them down to me. Let's see. I can get you more, homie, says Doug Stack. You and I, let's talk, Doug. So on my insurance, they only cost me $2 for a bottle of 10. Actually, a bottle of 30 only cost me $2 too on my insurance. My insurance doesn't work outside of Wisconsin. It's Wisconsin state insurance. And so there you go. I'm down here in Louisiana. It only works for emergency room stuff down here. I can get you some green stuff too. Money? I'll take it, Doug. Just don't write me a check. Just give me cash. You can't have a theory before an hypothesis. Exactly, Beth Kirkland. Kirkham. A hypothesis is the idea. You form a theory out of the hypothesis. So you may only have a hypothesis if you don't have a solid theory, and you don't really have a theory without it being able to be proven. So I know what you're talking about, Doug. You think I want to admit to criminal activity? Is it legal in Louisiana? I don't know yet. So there you go, Scotty, says Corey Blake. I'm being made an offer. Jason Graham, I have an addition. Tell us about it, Jason. Green-eyed monster. Green-eyed. You talking about green-eyed spitting females? Is that the same kind of green-eyed monster you're talking about? You know where I got that line? Of all places, Doris Day in Calamity Jane, the guy playing Wild Bill Hickok, which in that movie in the 50s, and Wild Bill Hickok had short hair like the 50s stars, and was wearing a cowboy tie and a vest and all that. Wild Bill Hickok, as we all know, was long-haired, freaky-looking dude with big old bushy mustache and lamb chops and the big old hat, wide brim hat and buckskins and things like that. Um, but he said to Calamity Jane in that, "You're nothing but a green-eyed, spitting female," talking about jealousy. So Michelle Kenham Free, how you doing? Men are jealous too. Yeah, we are. We are. We get jealous. We get weirdly jealous. Guys are the only animals. Well, I can't say that. I was going to say between male and female. Guys are the ones that can compartmentalize and have affairs or go get hooker and blow and whatever you want to do and go home to his wife and want to still have his relationship. It's a totally different compartment. But if he found out his wife did the same thing with a guy, he'd divorce her and try to take her for everything she had and all of that. Guys are two-faced. They can't handle that kind of stuff. So Jason Graham says, people that wish you bad. So I'm watching WandaVision, said Michelle. Yeah, the whole thing is shaking here today. Do we have earthquakes down here? Every now and then, everything in here shakes. My computer goes like this. I'm exaggerating it now, but there you go. So I have no Reuben FastHorse. I am going to just take one more look to see if he's even seen my messages. And he has not. So something happened in the last hour where Reuben is not available. No field guys. No field guys, earthquake says. Probably the wind. Yeah, we get that. We'll get the wind in the middle of the night, and you'll feel it. We were supposed to have thunderstorms today. We never had them. It did rain a bit though. So here's something else I wanted to do. I wanted to carry on a little bit in this book that I told you about a long time ago, not too long ago, because it's a fairly new book that's on the market. This is Matthew McConaughey's memoirs. He's up to 50 years old, his memoirs, called Green Lights. He had some really amazing things to say in this book. And I read a little portion of it last night. And last night we were talking a bit about parenting. And he was going to talk about his parents. And let's see if this is the chapter that's about. Well, he talked about what's a green light. Then he's got this. Then we read some of that last night. He talked about his parents and the way he was raised. And he says it's not your conventional way of being raised, but he says this is the way his parents were. And he talked about how he was disciplined and things like that. So I want to take a look at this, and I want to read you some of that. Hey, you're welcome, Scott Allen. Thanks for reading to us. You're welcome. Again, this is from Green Lights. I think you'll enjoy some of this. He says this. The chapter header is Wednesday night, 1974. So I would have been 13 at this time. He says, Dad had just gotten home from work greasy blue button down with Jim on the left chest patch already thrown in the washer. He sat at the head of the table in his sleeveless undershirt. He was hungry. My brothers and I had eaten already, and Mom pulled his reheated plate from the oven and shoved it in front of him. More potatoes, honey, he said as he dug in. My dad was a big man, says Matthew McConaughey, who's writing this. He was 6'4", 265 pounds. His fighting weight, he'd say. Any lighter and I'd catch a cold. At 44 years old, those 265 pounds were hanging in places that at this Wednesday evening dinner, my mom didn't fancy. Maybe he had man boobs going, I don't know what. I was crouching behind the couch in the living room, starting to get nervous. But Dad, head down, quietly continued to eat. Look at you, that fat belly of yours. Sure, eat up, fat man. My mom yapped as she scraped overwhelming amounts of mashed potatoes onto his plate. This was it. Boom. Dad flipped the dining room table into the ceiling, got up, and began to stalk Mom. God damn it, Katie, I work my ass off all day. I come home, I just want to eat a hot meal in peace. It was on. My brothers knew the deal. I knew the deal. Mom knew the deal as she ran to the wall mounted telephone on the other side of the kitchen to call 911. Yes, we had that in 1974. You can't leave well enough alone, can you, Katie? My dad grumbled through gritted teeth, his forefinger raised at her as he closed in across the kitchen floor. As he as he closed in, Mom grabbed the handheld end of the phone off the wall mount and raked it across his brow. Dad's nose was broken. Blood was everywhere. Mom ran to a cabinet and pulled out a 12-inch chef's knife, then squared off at him. Come on, fat man. I'll cut you from your nuts to your Gulliver. They circled each other in the middle of the kitchen, Mom waving the 12-inch blade. And does this sound familiar to any of you? Any of you have an upbringing like that? Dad, with his bloody broken nose, snarling incisors, he grabbed a half full 14-ounce bottle of Heinz ketchup off the counter, unscrewed the cap, and brandished it at her like a blade. Come on, fat man, Mom dared him again. I'll cut you wide open. Assuming the stance of a mocking matador, Dad began to fling ketchup from the bottle across Mom's face and body. Touche, he said as he pranced right to left. The more he flipped the ketchup on her and dodged her slashing chef's knife, the more frustrated Mom got. Touche again, Dad teased as he splattered a new red stripe across her while eluding another attack. Around and around they went until finally Mom's frustration turned to fatigue. Now covered in ketchup, she dropped the knife on the floor, stood straight, and began to wipe her tears and to catch her breath. Dad dropped the bottle of Heinz, relaxed out of his matador pose, and wiped the blood dripping from his nose with his forearm. Still facing off weapons, they stared at each other for a moment, Mom thumbing the ketchup from her wet eyes, Dad just standing there letting the blood drip from his nose down on his chest. Seconds later, they moved toward each other and met in an animal embrace. They dropped to their knees, then to the bloody, ketchup-covered linoleum kitchen floor, and made love. A red light turned green. This is how my parents communicated. This is why Mom handed Dad an invite to their own wedding and said, You got 24 hours to decide, let me know. This is why my mom and dad were married 3 times and divorced twice to each other. This is why my dad broke Mom's middle finger to get it out of his face 4 separate times. This is how my mom and dad loved each other. And then he has this little thing that he puts up in here. It says the golden rule and everything in moderation. Two adages often solicited as general rules for life. There's a loophole in each. Sometimes people don't want to do what you want to do, and one man's appetite is another man's indigestion. And so, yeah, an explosive relationship. And this goes on, this section goes on. We've got a few minutes left, so I'm going to go ahead and read just a little bit more of this before we wrap the show tonight. The McConaughey clan migrated from Ireland to Liverpool, England, to Little Rock, West Virginia, and New Orleans. There's no royalty in our past. There is, however, a lot of cattle thieving, riverboat gambling, and an Al Capone bodyguard. Dad is from Patterson, Mississippi, but grew up and felt most at home in Morgan City, Louisiana. Not all that far from where I am now. Mom's from Altoona, Pennsylvania, but always said she was from Trenton, New Jersey, because who'd want to be from a place called Altoona, she'd say. I have two brothers. The oldest, Michael, has been going by Rooster for 40 years now, because even if he goes to sleep at 4 a.m., he always wakes up at sunrise. When he turned 10, he wanted a little brother for his birthday present, so Mom and Dad adopted my brother Pat from the Methodist home in Dallas in 1963. Every year, Mom and Dad offered to take Pat and meet his birth parents. He declined until he turned 19 and took them up at their offer. Mom and Dad arranged the meeting, and the three of them drove to the home of Pat's birth parents in Dallas. Parked curbside, Mom and Dad waited in the car while Pat rang the doorbell and went inside. 2 minutes later, Pat walked out of their house and jumped into the back seat. What happened? They asked him. I just wanted to see if my dad was bald because my hair's thinning. Me, I was an accident. Mom and Dad had been trying to make a baby for years to no avail. To mom, though mom thought, so mom thought I was a tumor until the 5th month of pregnancy. Dad went to the bar instead of the hospital the day I was born because he suspected I wasn't his anyway, but I was. I got my first ass whooping for answering to Matt on the kindergarten playground. You weren't named after a doormat, Mom screamed. My second spanking was for saying I hate you to my brother. My third for saying I can't, and my fourth for telling a lie about a stolen pizza. I got my mouth washed out with soap for saying shit, damn, and fuck. But I only ever got in real trouble for the using or doing of the words that could harm me, words that hurt, the words that helped engineer who I am, because they were more than just words. They were expectations, they were consequences, they were values. My parents taught me that I was named my name for a reason. They taught me not to hate, to never say I can't, to never lie. Words are momentary, intent is momentous. My parents didn't hope we would follow their rules, they expected us to. A denied expectation hurts more than a denied hope, while a fulfilled hope makes us happier than a fulfilled expectation. Hope's got a higher return on happiness and less debit on denial. It's just not as measurable. My parents measured. And while I'm not advocating for physical punishment as a consequence, I do know that there are a lot of things I didn't do as a kid that I shouldn't have done because I didn't want to get my ass whooped. Isn't that the truth? That's the way I grew up. I didn't want to get my ass beat. I also know that I did a lot of things as a kid that I should have done because I wanted my parents' praise and adulation. Consequences work both ways. I come from a loving family. We may not have always liked each other, but we always loved each other. We hug and kiss and wrestle and fight. We don't hold a grudge. I come from a long line of rule breakers, outlaw libertarians who vote red down the line because they believe it'll keep fewer outlaws from trespassing in their territory. I come from a family of disciplinarians where you better follow the rules until you're man enough to break them, where you did what mom and dad said because I said so. And if you didn't get grounded, you got the belt or backhanded because it gets your attention quicker and doesn't take away your most precious resource, time. I come from a family who took you across town to your favorite cheeseburger and milkshake joint to celebrate your lesson learned immediately following your corporal correction. I come from a family that might penalize you for breaking the rules, but definitely punished you for getting caught. Slightly calloused on the surface, we know that what tickles us often bruises others because we deal with or deny it. We're the last to cry uncle to bad luck. It's a philosophy that's made me a hustler in both senses of the word. I work hard and I like to grift. It's a philosophy that's also led to some great stories. Like a good Southern boy, you can stick around for a few minutes, I'll finish this. Like a good Southern boy should, I'll start with my mom. She's a true baller, living proof that the value of denial depends on one's level of commitment to it. She's beat two types of cancer on nothing more than aspirin and denial. She's a woman that says, I'm gonna, before she can. I would, before she could. And I'll bet I'll be there before she's even invited. Fiercely loyal to convenience and controversy, or as the British say, controversy. She's always had an adversarial relationship with context and consideration because they ask permission. She might not be the smartest person in the room, but she ain't crying. She's 88 now, and seldom do I go to bed after her or wake up before her. Her curfew when she was growing up was when she danced holes big enough in the feet of her pantyhose that they came up around her ankles. Nobody forgives themselves quicker than she does, and therefore she carries zero stress. I once asked her if she ever went to bed with any regrets. She quickly told me, every night, son. I just forget 'em by the time I wake up. She always told us, don't walk into a place like you want to buy it, walk into a place like you own it. Obviously, her favorite word in the English language is yes. In 1977, Mom entered me into the Little Mr. Texas contest in Bandera, Texas. I won a big trophy. My mom framed this picture and put it on the wall. Here, I'll show you that. Matthew McConaughey winning his big Texas, Little Mr. Texas or something. Little Mr. Texas. She framed the picture, put it on the wall. Obviously, my mom was prepping me to be an actor long before it became my vocation. Green light. Then he puts in here knowing the truth, seeing the truth, and telling the truth are all different experiences. And he goes on and says, while mom taught us an audacious existentialism, dad taught us common sense. And then he goes and describes his dad. But we're going to end that here for tonight because we're already 4 minutes over time. I am sorry that we did not get Reuben FastHorse in here. Something must have come up and he wasn't able to get here. And that was a last minute change. What did you think about that book, though? Reading those sections, the way he grew up, the kind of parents he had, the kind of discipline that they offered. We're not quite that bad. Rainey and I have our knockdown dragouts at times, but never has she pulled a knife on me, and never have I squirted a bottle of ketchup all over her. There have been times where once she threw a piece of cheese at me. Now, we told this story a long time ago, but this was several years ago. She threw a piece of cheese at me because she was mad at me. She flung it at me. And it was a piece of processed cheese, like Kraft American cheese in the individual wrappers type of thing, flat processed cheese. She threw it at me and spat It stuck to my forehead. And there I sat with a big square of cheese on my forehead. And I looked at it like this, and I looked at her. She started to laugh at me. I laughed at her. The kids all laughed, and the fight was over. Which it tells you one thing: throws mayo, says Field Guy. You throw mayo? Um, I once took a mayo, the little individual packaged ones you get with sandwiches and stuff, and I hit it, and it squirted all over the place and hit her. She was none too happy about that, but it wasn't in anger. So Scott Allen had a girlfriend who threw a remote control at her head. Well, that's nice. Rainey has a thing with food. This was 10 years ago or more. She once threw a roast at me, roast beef. She broke it up into pieces and threw it. So you'll have to ask her about that sometime. We laugh at that stuff now. At the time, you're in a fight, and then the fight diffuses and you're done. Sometimes you see your spouse or your loved one, your significant other, doused in ketchup or with a piece of flat processed cheese stuck to their forehead, and it diffuses the argument. Rainey and I never becomes violent. We don't do violence at all. We do yelling. We do I'm pissed at you. We talked about that the other night. Sometimes there's name calling, but it's never meant to be eternally painful. It's never meant to be something that's hurtful. It's meant to be momentarily pissed off painful, which is different than being painful deliberately. I love you too, Michelle Cannon Free. Love you all. Matt Finn, you once had a cell thrown at you too. Um, my ex-wife, my son Sam's mom, my older daughter's mom, she hit me with lots of things. She sometimes punched me. She never punched me in the face. She punched me in the arm once. She kicked me in the nuts once, believe it or not. And she once in front of people, she took a pile of books that was in her hand and hit me over the head with them. You say, why do you let that happen? How do you let her get away with that? Well, you don't expect it's going to happen. You don't if that's the farthest thing from your mind. My wife's going to hit me with a pile of books. She hit me with a frying pan once. How cliche is that? That's the kind of person she was. Um, and I don't care to even say that, we had our times that were good times. Doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that Rainey and I, we have our rough spots, but we also have our great spots. And we try to temper all our rough spots with being good to each other. And as I've said before, we get in a fight. There's never knives drawn. There's never ketchup bottles squirted. Um, but there are times where it's the equivalent of words, the equivalent of whatever. And Rainey's not a big one to apologize, meaning I must come to you and confess my bad heart, my sour attitude, and my bad mood, and that I called you a name. And oh, do forgive me. I'm so sorry. Rainey doesn't do that. No, Rainey does. Um, we had a big fight one day, and later that day, I come into my office, and there's new six pairs of socks that I needed. I had said a day or so earlier that I needed socks. Oh, I was at the store today. I got you those. I saw those socks. Those are no socks. And that's her way. I go, why, thank you. How thoughtful. And that's the way she says, I'm sorry. She does stuff. She says, words are empty, according to Rainey. It's not the words, it's what you do, it's your actions. And so when I was out in Utah a couple of years ago, I have to take meds. Here, look, I got this thing right here. Where is it? It's under the book now. See this? That's filled with my medications for every day. 2 weeks worth. All the pills. Pills I have to take for diabetes, pills I have to take for heart, pills I have to take for blood pressure. I'm a goddamn walking medicine cabinet these days. Those are my pills. Well, I ran out, and then I have to take shots every day too because of my diabetes. And so I ran out of some of the shots, and I realized one day I'm all out, and I couldn't get them where I was in Utah. I had that Wisconsin insurance problem. So I ordered them, and she took the shots and she packed them all in an ice pack. Like ice packs you get for a swelled up ankle or something. You twist your ankle, that kind of thing. She wrapped them all in that, put them in one of those vinyl lunch bags with the Velcro, and wrapped it all up. Then she put an ice pack around that and bubble wrap, and she put it in a big box because now the package of shots, which is a little box that holds four of them, that is now this big. She puts it in a. I get this big box in the mail in Utah. And it's got all these little notes written all over it and things like that. The outside of the box, and I open it up and there's the pills, but she's got notes in it, and she sent all kinds of things in different Ziploc bags. I got you this thing, and it's in a Ziploc bag. Oh, here's those pens. These are those pens you like, or I can't remember everything she put in there. She filled this box like it was a care package. It was a care package. And that is the way that Rainey tells me, I love you and you mean a lot to me. And this is what she does. She does things like that. When we came down here, she said, so you don't have to buy lots of food down there. I took the whole pantry and I emptied it out and put it into boxes. And she loaded them in the truck herself. And we sent us down with like 6 big boxes of stuff. And I'm talking bigger boxes. One box is filled with all kinds of canned fruit, peaches, apricots, pears, mixed fruit, all of that kind of stuff. Everything in there is mixed fruit. The other big box, everything in there was like pasta sauces, red sauces, ragouts, canned hunts, tomato paste, tomato sauce, diced tomatoes, all of that, all in one other box. The next box had, baked beans, soups, another box filled with canned vegetables, another box that had cereals in it and syrups and mayo and unopened, of course, so it lasts jelly, peanut butters, all of this stuff was all in, and she organized all that and sent us down with it. She said, there, you got a bunch of stuff that's non perishable stuff. That's what she does. She's an amazing, amazing person. And I read a book like this and I look at how Matthew McConaughey says his parents were. And these are things we glean how other people do things in order to learn how to do our own things. We're never too old to learn anything. You can always teach an old dog new tricks. So that's why I read that stuff. That's why I talk about these things to pass things on. So we'll read more of that book as we go along when the time is right and appropriate. So as for now, let me just scroll back through I got to take these off to look at the chat room. Let me just scroll back through this and just see what everybody's saying about things. Steve Clark signed off. Steve Clark, if you're still there, good night. I see lots of good stuff in here. His brother Rooster is a big time investor, says Matt Finn. Owns several companies. Matthew McConaughey's brother. You resonate with me, Scott Roberts. English Irish, says Jason Graham. Thank you, Mr. Graham. I appreciate that. That's really cool. That means a lot to me to hear that. Don't bother me none, Matt says has 2 T's. Oh, Matt with 2 T's. Don't say anything when you're getting red hand, says Jason. Marks on your legs. Yeah. That's the way it was. I grew up in the 60s, as you all know. 60s and the 70s. By the time I was in the 70s, I was already, 11 and 12 years old, and I was out working with the guy that taught me how to build fireplaces and do stonework and bricklaying. And so I was doing my own thing pretty much. I think there was only one time where my mom broke a broomstick on me. My brother and I were fighting, and she didn't like it. And we sassed her off, and she had a broom in her hand, and she swung it at me, and it snapped the broomstick. And I went, "Ha ha! How do you think that went over?" So I was unhurt. I was uninjured. So there it was. Jason said my mom couldn't afford to do anything. So let's see what else we got here. There's stuff way further back. Thanks for reading to us, says Scott Allen. You're welcome. I love to read, as you know. Everybody knows. So if I have the chance, I'll read. Um, James said here in Louisiana, medical marijuana is just starting. James, where in Louisiana do you live? Did I miss that if you already said it in here? Because I'm down in Lake Charles, southwest Louisiana right now. And I'll be here for about 3 more months. Um, let's see, there's the earthquake posts. Let's see, what else do we have? Michelle Canapri says, "Aw, smiley shit pile." I don't know what that's about. I missed something. Michelle told us all to have a beautiful weekend. Um, you was good looking lad then, Scotty Roberts. Why, thank you, Jason. I hope I'm still somewhat good looking for an old guy now. Maybe when I lose my hair, I won't be so good looking. When I get old and losing my hair, many years from now. Sang that to Rainey. I think I did it on the radio. Will you still be sending me Valentine's? Christmas greetings, bottle of wine. Na 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 na. Fill in the words. Na 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 na. Will you, when I get something about coming home late, I think, and will you lock the door? Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? I got 4 years to go till 64. Good experiences shapes good thinkers, I think, everywhere. Matthew McConaughey, Matt Finn, all of us, we've all had our rough experiences. Our rough experiences make us who we are. Brings up a Star Trek reference. I hope you all don't mind. It's not literary, but it's fictional, pop fictional. Remember where one of the movies, there was Spock's brother who was able to take away your pains, your mental and emotional pains. And I remember Kirk turned him down and he says, "I don't want my pain taken away. I need my pain." He says, "I don't want to erase the fact that I turned right when I should have turned left." Um, because he said, "I need my pain to exist." And that's the way we all are. I have often said if I didn't go through some of the abuses I went through as a little kid, would I be the same person today? If I didn't go through some of the things that held me back and rocked the boat and sometimes tipped over the boat and spilled water and you had to tread water. If we didn't have our trials and tribulations, if we didn't come up against the hard wall in life, would we be the people who we are? I know I'd be a very different person. If I had a dad in my home, I'd have been a very different person. Um, if a lot of things that happened to me didn't happen, I'd have no stories to tell. I'd be a boring, drab person. And I am who I am today because of our pains, my mishaps, my missteps, my wrong decisions, my calculated risks. All of those things make us who we are. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. Rock the boat, don't tip the boat over. Rock the boat, don't rock the boat, baby. So older people have different values, says Jason Graham. Yeah, I agree. My values are different than my son's values, my 20-year-old son. They're different than my 6-year-old daughter or my 29-year-old twin daughters or my 9-year-old daughter and my 11-year-old son. Yeah, I got 6 of them in all. My values are going to be different than theirs. My values are sometimes different than my wife. Rainey's 20 years behind me. I was born in 60, she was born in 80. Every now and then she makes reference of, oh, that's because you're an old guy. You do things like an old guy. And I say, yeah, watch it, 40-year-old wife, soon to be 41, um, which is next month, by the way, the end of April. Rainey turns 41. And so I say, ain't that much older than you. I said, look at this. I said to the 15-year-old middle school kid, high school kid, you know what? You and I are both fogies already. So I wouldn't overuse the old man bit too much. And so by the time she's the age I am now, I'm going to be 80. Should I live so long? So you're 2 months older than Rainy, Field guy. You're welcome, Barbie D. So Matt Finn says definitely not. Although maybe that's the lessons we have to learn. Yeah. I didn't have a dad in the house either at first, says Scott Allen. I was 11 in 1980. I was obsessed with The Empire Strikes Back. You don't even know. I was just talking yesterday to my son. And I've talked about this before. I read the article on this show that I wrote years ago. Um, I grew up idolizing Captain Kirk from Star Trek. That was my hero. I just saw a post somebody put up. It was a black and white picture of the whole original Star Trek crew sitting on the bridge. They're all looking away from the camera. It was a posed shot. And it said, this group of people taught me respect, courage, responsibility, um, uh, empathy, all of these things, honor, and all of those things, dignity. He says, these are the people I watched as a kid, and that's what this show taught me. That's what this group taught me. And that's very true. And Kirk was my hero. So much so that if anybody insulted Captain Kirk or his ship in front of me, or to me, or to mock me or tease me because I was a nerd, they were on very shaky ground with me. You better tread lightly if you insult the captain. And the captain was that emotional, psychological surrogate father in my life. Scott Allen, you might understand what that means. You had The Empire Strikes Back. I had Star Trek um, in the late '60s, late '60s to the early 1970s. So, um, oh, I got a friend that was just messaged me. Sorry, I thought it was Reuben for a second there. So, thanks, Matt Finn. I wish he could have been here. We'll get him another time. And hopefully, maybe even tomorrow night. We'll see. Well, no, tomorrow's Saturday. Guess what? I'm not here. There's no show. But I will be back on Sunday. So mark it down. We're going to do our Sunday morning show, which is so much more informal than this makeshift informal version of our real show, which airs Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. I'm getting all kinds of messages from people right now. It's all the dinging in the background if you're hearing that. And so we'll be back on Sunday morning. Hopefully, we'll be able to patch Rainy in again. And if not, or maybe both, we could get Reuben in here too on Sunday. We'll see what happens. So all of you, that's it. I could keep talking, but why? It's 10:24. Why don't you all, if you're out east, it's 11:24. Just go to bed. And I will see you all on Sunday. If I have time tomorrow, I might do a quickie in there. Maybe a lousy cup of coffee tomorrow. We'll see what happens. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate you and I appreciate what you give to me, and that's your time. and your support. So thank you very much. Have a good night. And as always, every night, live long and prosper. See you later.